gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 23rd, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and Stephen Wagner, as we discuss the news of the day, presented today by Gametime.co, your go-to destination for all your ticket needs, whether it's a Miami Hurricane game, a Miami Dolphin game, a Miami Heat game, Panther game, or any game around the country, any concert around the country, any theater performance around the country. Gametime.co can help you find the best tickets at the most affordable prices, and they will guarantee it to you while they're at it. So we'll talk a little bit more about Game Time later on in the show. In the meantime, if you want, you can download the Game Time app while you're sitting here watching Good Morning CaneSport, because there's going to be some interesting Miami Hurricanes games coming up, and you might need some extra tickets on the heels of Miami's, I can say, shocking victory over Clemson. I don't think it was shocking. I think Miami had every reason to be able to win that game, but certainly starting Emory Williams at quarterback put a little bit of a mystique to the goings-on at Hard Rock Stadium Saturday night. And Matt, you and I have been watching Emory Williams from the day he got to Miami. I had the opportunity to watch his workout. I happened to be on campus for another event and happened to see Emory Williams working out for Frank Ponce and Mario Cristobal on the day he traveled down to Miami to try to convince them to make him their quarterback in this 2023 recruiting class. And I was incredibly impressed that day. He can make every throw on the field. He's incredibly accurate. He's incredibly consistent. And everything that we saw on Saturday night in the Clemson game lined up with what I saw that day when he was just working out. And obviously he's progressed since then. He's become a Miami Hurricane. He's gone through spring and fall practice. And voila, Tyler Van Dyke is unable to go Saturday night, and there was Emory Williams in the middle of the fray, start to finish, no messing around, no jerking him in and out with your Curry Brown. It was the Emory Williams show, Matt. He didn't disappoint.
Well, I mean, and it started with, we were joking that Kane's walk was more like Kane's limp because because Tyler Van Dyke was limping around out there. But, I think it's a mistake to make this Emory Williams' coming out party, because this game, you cannot take the credit away from the Miami offensive line and the Miami defense and Lance Guidry. That's what won the game. They made Emory Williams a great game manager. And in the fourth quarter and overtime, he did what he needed to do. He was very calm and poised and made some great throws, which is fantastic. But, everyone wants to point to the quarterback, and da-da-da-da. And look, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of Miami fans that are upset, just like I am this morning, upset there's no House Speaker, because we're sure as hell not upset about the Miami Hurricanes beating Clemson. I've been waiting since 2010 for this. In 2010, I was 8 years old. No.
I was.
You probably were. Yes.
This was a great. You can't understate how big a victory this is for Miami. The excitement level for me. I mean, if I had to put it in terms people understand how excited I am about the future of this program, I would label it almost Taylor Swift level excitement, because the amount of young players in this game. Okay, I added it up, and it's in my column this morning. There are 14 players on this team that have contributed this year, and fairly significantly, in my opinion, on offense and defense, that are first-year and second-year players, either true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or true sophomores. Okay, there are 3 starters on this team that are going to be out of eligibility after this year. What that tells you is that this team's going to be really, really good next year. This team beat Texas A&M. This team beat Clemson. Those are both really talented rosters. And this is a young Miami roster, and everyone gets fixated on the team's record and this and that and the inconsistency. How do you lose to Georgia Tech? North Carolina, lost to Virginia. These teams that aren't consistent. It's the way the game is now. But you want to see an upward trajectory with a young team, and that's what we have. Like, it's okay they lost a couple of games this year, because next year they're going to be a lot better. The year after that, they're going to be even better than that, because you see these young guys and how talented they are. And yeah, Emory Williams, to me, played a great game. You know, Gary and I were in the press box talking about how we thought Shannon Dawson was making a mistake, just reining in the offense so much. But Miami's defense really, I don't know if Cade Klubnik is that bad, or if the Miami defense made him that confused, because like we were up in the press box, which we're 100 yards up in the sky, and we just see Clemson receivers running free right and left. He just doesn't see him. Like, even on that final, there's a final series in overtime, I think it was, where just the running back was just, nobody even covered him out of the backfield, and Ruben Bane just sacked Klubnik like he never even looked. So, you know, all the credits to Lance Guidry for just really putting him out of sorts to the point where apparently Klubnik gave up on his own offensive coordinator, to the point that literally on the last play of the game, he ignored the play call and just ran on his own. And I literally was up in the press box, and I turned to, I think, Manny Navarro, and I said, how stupid is it that they ran? You know, it's great you fake the run up the middle and you have the quarterback bootleg to the left because he can run, but how is there no receiver in the end zone running the same direction? Because you see those plays run all the time, you know, where you have the tight end on the right end of the line sneak out and try to get lost in the wash and cut left, and he's wide open for the touchdown pass if the linebacker comes up like Corey Flagg did to take Cade Klubnik on the final play of the game. The reason there was no other receiver in the end zone is because Cade Klubnik ran the wrong play. He just thought that, I guess, he could run in the end zone and that Miami's defense was not going to chase him for some reason. He lost his mind. Miami did not lose its mind. Miami was poised throughout the game. You know, the fact that they lost their starting quarterback, the fact that their second best, as it turns out, defensive lineman was missing, because Akeem Mesidor is no longer Miami's best defensive lineman, let's face it, okay? Ruben Bane might be the best defensive lineman in the conference, maybe even one of the best in the country, okay? I mean, we're going to do a breakdown to him, and he's unbelievable. But you're missing Akeem Mesidor. You've got other guys banged up. You know, you're missing Henry Parrish, your starting running back. You're missing Mark Fletcher, who probably would have started in this game if he was healthy with Henry Parrish out. So you have all sorts of missing pieces. Yet Miami found a way to win, and off 2 straight losses against Clemson, down by 10 points in the fourth quarter. If you added all that up before the game, a Miami fan who's watched this team for the last 17 years says we lose by 30 points. We lose by 30 points. And they found a way to win. And I don't care what happened the last 2 games. I don't care what happened last season. I'm hanging my hat on this game. I'm saying this game proves that this is a stepping stone season. And you can read my column about it this morning. This proves it, okay? They beat a very good, very talented Clemson team. I don't care they lost 2 games. This is the first game Clemson had less yards than the opponent all year. Clemson's a very talented NFL-laden roster. And Miami beat a really good Clemson team that always competes for the ACC title. Like, that's a start. That's a start. And Mario's only been here a year and a half. You know, fans that say he's terrible, he's not a good game day coach, they're right, he's not a good game day coach. He's also a terrible liar, you know? I mean, he literally, like, everybody knew Tyler Van Dyke wasn't going to play, but, you know, God forbid you say something about it. And, you know, Mario insisted that he was going to play, right? And then in the post game, it's like he wanted to just cover his butt, and he's like, he had a setback. You know, let's face it. You know, I know Tyler did not practice all week. He did not practice once all week. There was no setback on Wednesday or Thursday that took them by surprise, like Mario said. Okay.
Monday he could barely walk. Like he was much improved when we saw him Saturday. Much improved over what he was.
Said he was going to practice on Monday. Mario said he told everyone he's good to go on Monday. Like, whatever. Don't, you know, if you want to lie, Mario, just do it the Butch Davis way. Just lie. Don't try to say afterwards, make up some other story to cover your lie. Like when I was a kid, I would tell a lie, and then it got even worse when you tell more lies. Like, just tell the first lie and stick with it. Don't add stuff to the lie. You know, it's fine. You're allowed to lie to the media in order to win a game, in order to not give your opponent information. That's allowed. But then don't come back afterwards and compound it and say, oh, he had a setback, you know, in the middle of the week or something stupid like that.
I didn't see anything out there Saturday night to lead me to suggest that anything that was going on with Tyler Van Dyke and Emory Williams had anything to do with Clemson's defensive game plan.
No, but you know how coaches are. Anyway,
it's ridiculous.
I don't want to hammer on that too much. I just think it's funny. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, but there was nothing. There was nothing there. It was a nothing burger.
Correct. So and there's no quarterback controversy. If Tyler Van Dyke's healthy, Tyler Van Dyke is the starter this year. Like, that's just the way it is. If Tyler Van Dyke wants to come back next year, I sure as hell hope that coaches make it an open competition between Tyler and Emory. And I'm not sure Emory doesn't win that competition next year, by the way. Because if he had been as comfortable in the beginning of this game as he was at the end of this game, he could have probably thrown for 300 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns against Clemson. Like, Clemson was leaving that deep part of the field open. And when Emory did take some shots, other than a couple of really bad ones where he was nervous early on, like when he took those shots in the fourth quarter, and there was, I think, maybe one in the second. No, maybe there wasn't any in the second overtime. No, because he just didn't do the 12-yard pass. But he took 3 shots in the fourth quarter, and all of them were right on the money. And Colby Young dropped one of them. I was just very impressed. And we were saying in the press box, he has a little bit of a noodle arm early on because he wasn't putting a lot of pace on it. But then he just darts one 100 miles an hour right on the money at one point. I think it was maybe a 16-yard gain in the second half. So he really was trying to put touch on the ball. He was smart about things. He knew seemed to know what he was doing for the most part. And he didn't throw to Xavier Restrepo every time, which was refreshing. As good as Xavier is, it's nice to see other people lead the team in receiving.
I was watching the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this whole, not to get off topic, but Kansas City Chiefs, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, the whole thing. Patrick Mahomes, now they're, Taylor's BFF with Brittany Mahomes. If you like your pop culture and crap, you've been reading about this on like a minute-to-minute basis the last week online. It's like a whole freaking melodrama playing out with the Kansas City Chiefs and, Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes and the whole thing. So anyway, and Patrick Mahomes is so clearly feeding Travis Kelce now, even more so than ever. It's not like he wasn't doing it all the time, but I mean, he had, I think, 9 catches in the first half of their game yesterday. He's not even looking at anybody else at most of the time. And it just reminded me, I didn't hear anybody complaining, oh man, Patrick Mahomes is only looking at Travis Kelce now, as they show Taylor Swift making a fool out of herself up in the skybox, trying to show everybody, hey, I'm a normal person and I can get excited at a football game and high five and the whole thing. And the whole thing, it's just so hysterical. But the point I'm making is when Tyler Van Dyke is out there from Miami and he's feeding Xavier Restrepo, it's fine, but nobody's bothered in Kansas City about Mahomes feeding Kelce. It's positive yardage. So I don't know. I think that was becoming a little bit overblown. Yeah. I'm trying to, I was thinking as I was watching this, who can we fix up Xavier with? There was that influencer on campus. I can't remember. Steven, you're a young guy. You're on social media. What's the name of the girl on the Miami campus that became the big influencer that's now dating Braxton Berrios?
Oh, God.
You know what I'm talking about? All right, forget her.
Gary, you're asking the wrong guy for this, man. I don't have TikTok.
Azubi would know. But
Azubi would know. I'm
he would definitely know. But I'll make it easy for the sake of our conversation. I think we should fix Xavier Restrepo up with one of the Cavender twins. Okay, Haley, let's fix him up with Haley. Well, no, she's going out with a Dallas Cowboy football player. How about Hannah Cavender? Let's fix up Xavier with Hannah Cavender, and we'll put Hannah Cavender up in the skyboxes going crazy every time Xavier catches a ball, and maybe everything will be okay in the Canes Nation at that point because everyone will be distracted. But anyway, it's all kind of funny. But listen. Emory Williams played great, against Clemson. He was absolutely phenomenal. I thought that Shannon Dawson did a good job managing the game, let him work it in. The biggest factor, guys, in that situation Saturday is this. Clemson's DBs are really damn good, and they play the game at a speed that is far greater than what Emory Williams or Tyler Van Dyke sees on the Miami practice field every day. Their DBs are better than Jaden Davis and Darryl Porter and to Corey Couch. And I mean, I'm not disrespecting anybody. There's just no comparison. These are big time guys that are going to be in the National Football League. They were all 4 or 5 star recruits, and they are really good. So in attacking that defense, Shannon Dawson had to give Emory time to get used to the speed of the game. The speed of the game was flat different. And, we're all sitting up in the upstairs and in the stands, and we don't realize all this, and fans don't realize this is going on. And they're yelling and screaming that the offense is too conservative. They were being very careful, okay, to not put Emory Williams in a bad situation, including at the end of the game when they had the ball at their own 40-yard line and they didn't try to score. And everyone's like, what's Mario doing? And if Miami had lost that game, Mario would have gotten blistered, okay, all over across the country for making the decision to sit on the ball in the last minute of the game and not try to get a field goal at that point.
They needed 20 yards for a long field goal, 20 yards with 30 seconds left, and they just let the clock run out. Yeah,
they let the clock run out because,
shocking, honestly.
And the explanation we got after the game was that Clemson has some very exotic blitzes in their defense, and they did not want to set Emory up with Clemson knowing he was going to throw the ball and have him sitting back in the pocket looking down the field for a receiver and, get a strip sack, get an interception, return for a touchdown. There were a million bad thoughts that were going through Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson's mind at that point in time that inspired them to just let the clock run out and play for overtime. And thank God this one worked out because it would have been ugly. It really absolutely would have. But aside from Emory Williams playing a solid game like he did, and he got progressively better as the game went on, and he got used to the speed, and as he had success, they had more confidence to ask him to do more things, and the Miami offense became a little bit more diverse in the fourth quarter, although the offensive line was just unbelievable. Really, the Miami offensive line took over the football game. They had one drive that went for 9 minutes, ran the ball almost every play, and they were just knocking people off the ball. And these are good players on Clemson's defense. This was number 5 defense in America, okay? The Miami offensive line came of age, and all I could think of, guys, while I'm watching this mauling that was taking place out there in Hard Rock is, where was this last week? Where was this against Georgia Tech? Why does this team show up selectively? And to me, for the second half of the season, that is Mario Cristobal's challenge. You can't be selective with your effort. And there was a significant difference on both sides of the ball last night. Congratulations, because it led to a victory. But there should not be such a discernible difference in the degree of effort being expended by the players on the field. Stephen, I'm going to let you chime in on this because you've been waiting so patiently. You had to notice what I noticed. There was such a drastic difference from what we saw last at home against Georgia Tech. What I know I saw last week at North Carolina, there was more urgency. The guys were playing harder. Heck, even Leonard Taylor showed up Saturday night at Hard Rock Stadium. And you know what? That's cause for a national celebration, okay? Because that kid, we saw the way that he can influence a football game. He just never does it, okay? Saturday night, he did it, and it was a huge factor in Miami winning that game. Did you notice the things I noticed, Stephen?
Yeah, I definitely did, especially with Leonard Taylor. I mean, he looked like a kid who was a former 5-star recruit out of high school. He looked like the guy that we thought he was going to look like whenever he first showed up at Miami. That was exactly the player that I think a lot of us kind of envisioned Miami getting, and the player that, quite frankly, I think a lot of NFL scouts see and say, okay, yeah, we can harness that potential. We can use that potential on Sundays. He just hasn't shown that consistently this year at all, really, until the Clemson game, when it felt like he kind of just put his foot down and decided, okay, yeah, I'm going to handle this. I understand, we're a little bit depleted. I understand that we're going up a team who probably overall a lot of people assumed had a better roster than going into the year. I know that I, for one, thought Clemson was going to win the ACC. I picked Clemson to win this game preseason. And that wasn't so much of a knock against Miami as that was just a compliment toward Clemson and the success that I thought Clemson was going to have this year. But kind of going back to what you were saying, Gary, Miami looked much better prepared this week than they did last week against North Carolina, especially defensively and especially with that defensive line. I mean, it really felt like last week Miami was having a hard time getting set against North Carolina's tempo. They were having a hard time getting their signals, and it felt to me like the defensive line was just being caught totally unprepared for the North Carolina tempo. And by the time that they actually had a second to stop and catch their breath, North Carolina was already snapping the ball, and you are being forced to play a game on their terms. And to Miami's credit, I think they did a tremendous job of forcing Clemson to play a game on their terms at Hard Rock on Saturday. I thought that Miami dictated the pace of play. Miami controlled time of possession. Miami chose the tempo that was going to be run. Miami really handled all aspects of this game. And I think everything comes back to that big offensive line and the style of play that offensive line played with. I mean, I think that's the offensive line that I think a lot of us thought that Miami was going to have pretty consistently whenever Mario Cristobal got here. An offensive line that can line up with 10 defenders in the box against you and just say, yeah, we are going to run the ball. You are absolutely loading this box and we're going to run it down your throat anyway. And especially in the third and fourth quarter and in overtime, that's what Miami did. And that's what Miami did really, really effectively. And I thought the biggest takeaway from that whole game was Miami showed it does not need one particular quarterback to win. When the offensive line is going to play like that and the defense is going to play like that, you do not have to have lights out quarterback play all night long. You just need a guy who can get back there and pretty much avoid absolute catastrophe. Because let's face it, for a lot of that night, Emory looked like a true freshman. You know, I didn't think the expectations for Emory were massive, especially considering the first start of your college career is against the Clemson defense. I don't think that there was an overwhelming amount of pressure, wild or unheard of expectations from fans for Emory Williams, knowing what he was going up against. But man, he did just enough. And I think that the offensive line and the defense really deserve a crazy amount of credit for it.
All right, so the O-line steps up big. Emory Williams steps up. I thought Colby Young, he had a drop, but he stepped up, made some big plays in the fourth quarter. And the defense stepped up. And, we mentioned the problems that they had against the hurry-up offense of North Carolina. They had clearly worked on it because Clemson tested it. Like they rolled it out for a couple plays just to see what it would look like. And they very quickly abandoned it because they knew Miami had worked on that in practice. They knew that they were ready for that this week, and they were. There was even one sequence where they even had like almost like an automatic blitz called, like, they in a hurry up situation, they blitzed. So they had worked on it. They had that ready to go. They will not get caught with that again in a future game the way they did at North Carolina. And it's a shame because when you look at losing North Carolina now, and of course what happened in the Georgia Tech game, man, this is scary close right now to being a really special season for Miami. And it's now they're scrambling, like they're still scrambling, like beating Clemson. You still have 2 losses. Okay. So it's not like they're not still scrambling. Every week is obviously significant. This week you got Virginia, which just upset North Carolina. So every game matters. Fans should come out. There's no layups in the ACC this year. Even Boston College beat Georgia Tech on Saturday. So that's going to be an interesting game up there after Thanksgiving. But Matt, the defense had some guys step up, particularly Ruben Bane and Leonard Taylor, I thought took a big step up. Corey Flagg made the big play at the end. KJ Cloyd was doing a nice job in pass coverage on their tight end. He got beat once or twice, but that kid's good. Like, you're not winning every single battle along those lines. And the biggest thing was Clemson was targeting Jaden Davis like there was no tomorrow. I mean, they kept challenging him and challenging him and challenging him. And I know he gave up one or two of them, but he didn't cave in. I mean, pass defense, Matt, is not his strength. He didn't cave in to the pressure that Clemson was applying to him. And in the end, those big plays they were hitting were not enough.
I mean, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Jaden Davis had 3 pass interference calls that weren't called. As bad as the refs are, and as biased as they are against Miami, and that safety was ridiculous that they didn't call. Like Jaden Davis, clearly, I remember 2 for sure pass interferences, and I'm pretty sure there was a third. I'm just unsure if it was against him or somebody else. But there was definitely 3 pass interferences against Miami because Clemson's whole strategy in that game was Miami's going to stack up to stop the run, and they were right about that. And we're going to hit him over the top because their corners aren't very good.
Correct.
Daryl Porter, I think, even though he graded out the worst of the 3 starting cornerbacks, I thought he was the best of them just from watching.
Yeah, I don't know why. He played great.
Yeah, I thought he played great. Jaden Davis, I thought, was not good in coverage. I mean, to me, he just wasn't. And I thought Te'Cory Couch was okay. Pretty much Te'Cory is always okay. He's never been great to me. He's always been okay, and he was okay in this game. So Clemson's strategy wasn't bad. Where Clemson failed was, and I think Miami, I don't know if they were just messing with Clemson, but all the players and landscapers were like, oh, Clemson watched North Carolina. They're going to run a pace offense and do the same thing North Carolina did. And you know what? If Clemson did that, they probably would have had more success, but that's just not Clemson's style. And a lot of offensive coordinators aren't going to change who they are just because the defense struggled against a different style tempo. Like, that's just not what they do. So Clemson ran its normal offense, which I think helped Lance Guidry. When Lance Guidry has time to really get his play calls in and get his defense to where they can confuse an offense, which is what they did in this game. Clearly, I've already started looking at the tape. They were doing the normal thing. Line up 6 right at the line, 2 drop in coverage, and they blitz the nickel. That happened on one of the plays. Okay, and in overtime, that happened, and it wound up, I think, either being a sack or a quarterback hit and almost interception by Cam Kinchens. Those types of plays, he was able to dial up in this game because he had time to really make sure that the defense understood exactly what they were doing and they could move around before the snap, right? Which also creates confusion for the offense. Against North Carolina took away all of that. Where Lance Guidry's defense clearly, to me, will struggle is against those offenses that are able to run at an extraordinarily high pace. Lance Guidry's defense in every game that I've seen this year, he's really proven that he can out-scheme top offense coordinators and top offenses at this level, which is fantastic because, when a guy hasn't coached at this level against this level of offense coordinator, you're always concerned about it. And I brought that up before the season. To me, he's proven it. He's proven he can stop top offenses, top offensive coordinators when they don't bring a lot of pace. Because when they bring a lot of pace, his defense is predicated on a lot of pre-snap movement, on a lot of being able to get guys up the line and then have them come back. And when they're just running up and snapping, you don't have time to get your guys running to the line, running backwards. I mean, it's just too much.
But last night they had it in. Like I noticed it when Clemson was testing them.
They did it early. They did it early.
They only did it for a few plays. They abandoned it.
There was 2 run plays where they sort of went back to the line and lined up without substituting.
But Lance Guidry blitzed on one of those, Matt, which means they must have had it in the game plan.
Yeah,
a way to call that blitz in a very quick way because it was a hurry up situation and they blitzed on the play, and that was not something that we saw at North Carolina.
That's actually not.
I was hard on Lance Guidry last week. I just want to come back
because that's not true. That's not true. They did
100% true.
It's not. What they did against North Carolina was they would line up 4 instead of 6 to the line, and they would blitz the safety or blitz one guy. Instead of lining up 6, dropping people in coverage, what they didn't do against North Carolina was confuse the offense by being able to drop guys that were at the line.
But it got to the point where they had to go base because they couldn't get their calls in.
Correct. But against Clemson in that first quarter, when Clemson did try to go after a couple of run plays, get back to the line quickly, if you noticed, they still just lined up with 4 linemen. They weren't doing the crazy stuff. And they did bring a blitz, but they did that against North Carolina. But they were more calm and collected. They held up in coverage. They were fine. Yeah. And there were shots that could have been taken by Clemson. I'm not going to cover up for Lance Guidry entirely because, look, if you watch the film, and I've started looking at it, there was guys running free in the secondary. There just were, but he did enough with Ruben Bane in particular. And Clemson did a terrible job of not understanding how good Ruben Bane is. Clemson has a guy who's starting his second game of his entire career. He's a second-year player starting his second game ever. I think he's our starting left tackle or starting right tackle, one of the tackles. And Bane's just destroying him, and they're not giving him any help. And then Bane goes to the other side, and they don't give any help. Bane had 10 quarterback pressures, and their offensive coordinator just kept on keeping 5 offensive linemen and a running back trying to stop him. And the running back often
he did the same thing up in North Carolina too.
They were trying to just block him one-on-one, and you can't until an offensive coordinator realizes you can't stop Ruben Bane one-on-one. You cannot. No team is going to have success throwing the ball against Miami. Like, you need to have an H-back or a running back helping on that side, and time again, Clemson will look back at that film and say, we were, can you say moron and idiot now? I don't know if you still can, but that's what they were. Like, when you watch that game film and watch what Ruben Bane did to them,
you can use
like,
the word
what
moron.
were they thinking?
I give you permission. Call him a moron.
I mean, they weren't even picking him up sometimes. Like, there was one play where Francisco Mauigoa blitzes from middle linebacker, and Ruben Bane's lined up at left end against a 2-year starter at right tackle. So it was the left tackle who was starting a second game. And so Francisco Mauigoa goes into the left guard on the blitz, and Bane just curls right behind him and goes right in the middle and gets right at the quarterback. Like, nobody's even there because the running back, Lance Guidry had bought the nickel on a blitz, and the running back had gone out to the side to pick up him. Like, it was just easy pickings for Lance Guidry blitzing. Like, anybody blitzing against 5 offensive linemen and 1 running back, and you have Ruben Bane, like, you're not going to have much of a chance. There was no max protect for Clemson. Cade Klubnik didn't know what the hell was going on and was just kept on looking. It was like a magician. It was like a magic trick for Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik's probably like thinking like Ruben Bane just disappeared off the map, and then bam, all of a sudden he's right in front of me, because he was just coming out from different spots and popping up right in front of Klubnik's face. And it was like a birthday party. It was like the magician at the birthday party was Ruben Bane, and he would just pull the sack out of his hat, and that was that. I mean, a fantastic job by fantastic job by Lance Guidry and by Ruben Bane. You cannot say enough about the effort. Ruben Bane's effort. Just watch the final overtime drive. Just watch that final overtime drive by Clemson. Watch Ruben Bane on every single one of those snaps. This is a guy, and I covered cross country and track, high school cross country and track when I was working for the Baltimore Sun Community Papers. There was an autistic runner who ran the exact same split every single leg of whatever he was doing. Like his first mile, his second mile, third mile, they'd all be the same. It was just like a machine. And Ruben Bane's not autistic, okay? But Ruben Bane he has the same exact. Are you allowed to talk about this? I don't know if I'm going to be like, what is the word, doxed, or I don't know canceled. I don't care. This is a fact. Like, he was autistic. He ran the same splits. Like, I wrote a whole story about it. Ruben Bane does not alter his energy level, his quickness, his power, or his speed from his first snap to his 60th snap. That final drive, I would encourage everybody to watch Clemson's final offensive drive in the second overtime and watch Ruben Bane on every single one of those snaps. One of them, he just runs up to the tackle, gets up on him, throws him out of the way, and goes on his way to the quarterback for a sack, 10-yard loss. That basically, that was the first overtime. I'm sorry. Watch those 2 overtimes, because he was just out of his mind. Like, everyone else was exhausted, and Ruben Bane's just at another level. Like, he was great. His splits never slow down.
Yeah, he was great. So, defensively, Ruben Bane, James Williams had a very nice game. Francisco Mauigoa had a nice game. Cam Kinchins played decently. And Jaden Davis didn't quit. Like, to me, that was a big deal. He didn't go into the tank. He didn't sulk. Kept battling every play. And I'm sure he was feeling the pressure. But you can't give all these guys collectively enough credit. That was a big win for Miami. A loss there would not have been a good situation. It would have created the appearance of a free fall. It would have been the 13th time in 18 years. Miami lost 3 games in a row. Now they got to put a streak together and get momentum going. Hopefully they can win 3 straight before they go to Florida State. So we'll see what happens. So we had a ton of coverage of that game on the website. It'll continue today. We've got a couple availabilities today with Mario Cristobal. We'll be talking to the coordinators today. So be sure you check that out as Miami tries to turn the page now, bottle some consistency, and take the same effort guys against Virginia Saturday in what's going to be a 3:30 game at Hard Rock Stadium. Okay, we have obviously more things to talk about, but I want to take a minute here to talk about Game Time, because the Game Time app and gametime.co is very rapidly emerging in the ticketing industry as one of the go-to destinations to get yourself the best deals and the best tickets for events all over the country, whether they be sporting events like a Miami game or a concert or theater event anywhere else. And, Game Time has really perfected making things easy to buy tickets. They have last minute specials. They have graphics where you could go online and see exactly what your seat location will look like when you get to the game or show. And they will guarantee you the best price all the time. They have 110% guarantee. So if you find the same price in the same row and section as what you pay Game Time, they will give you 110% guarantee on that purchase. So Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you peace of mind, and that's because its founder created it because he didn't have peace of mind at all as he was trying to attend the Major League Baseball playoff game. He had bought tickets on an app. He had to go down to his basement to try to print them. They didn't work. He had a mess. He almost missed the game. And he said, I have to make this better. And that's why you have gametime.co and the Game Time app. So if you want to check out Game Time, all you got to do is go on the app or on the website and use the code CANES when you make your first ticket purchase, and they will give you $20 off that first purchase. It's CANES as the code, $20 off your first purchase for an event on Game Time through the app or on the website. Terms do apply. Make sure you read all the small print there. But we think that you will really like Game Time quite a bit. So gametime.co, the Game Time app, check it out. Lowest price guaranteed, and use the code CANES, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. All right. So, we've got all this coverage of Saturday's game. We went crazy. So if you haven't read it all, go back on the website, check it all out. It's all there. But while this game and all this drama was playing out, there were a bunch of recruits in attendance at the game. And so we put Steven in charge of talking to as many of them as possible afterwards while we all frickin' scurried around and tried to get all the interviews that we could. Steven, you had a chance to speak to well over a dozen of those guys leaving Hard Rock Stadium Saturday night. Your update on how that game impacted recruiting.
Yeah, this was the win that Miami really, really had to have. We talked about this a little bit before the game. If Miami ends up winning the Georgia Tech game and they still lose to North Carolina, you're heading into that game against Clemson 5-1. Obviously, you can't control how Clemson's season has gone, but still Miami's most likely a top 25 team. I'm willing to bet that game probably isn't just on the ACC network, and there's probably a bit more palpable buzz around the program heading into that game. But Miami still, after two really, really disappointing weeks, and Gary, I know you mentioned it on Good Morning CaneSport the other day, this was going to be like the 15th time in 19 years or something like that Miami would have lost 3 straight games. Well, Miami didn't. Miami avoided that. That's it. That's what I was looking for. But Miami didn't. Miami avoided losing 3 straight games, and they did it against an opponent that I think recruits understand. Yeah, Clemson is not what Clemson has been in previous years, but they're still a very good football team. They still have a very good defense. They have a lot of talent. They have recruited very, very well. And yeah, the program's been on a little bit of a different trajectory in recent years. They don't have Trevor Lawrence anymore. I thought that was apparent on Saturday. And they're not going to play for the national championship this year. In fact, it looks like they're probably not going to play for the ACC championship this year after that loss, because now they have 3 ACC losses. But these recruits understand how big of a deal this is for Miami. They understand that Miami hasn't beaten Clemson in a really, really long time, and that this is absolutely massive for the program. This is a win that Mario Cristobal can hang his hat on a little bit, because they haven't had a win like this, in a while, especially at home. I mean, heck, Miami hadn't even beaten an ACC team at home under Mario Cristobal before Clemson. And I mean, shoot, there were not very many of us who thought that Miami was going to win that game heading into the contest Saturday night. I mean, myself included. I did not think Miami was going to win. Judd Anderson's dad, however, did think Miami was going to win. So shout out to my guy Wade. He was pretty convinced that Miami was going to win, and Judd thought Miami was going to win too. So shout out to both of those guys for clearly knowing more than I do about football. But coming out of that game, you see guys like Ellis Robinson saying, yeah, I do think more of Miami after that win. That's a 5-star prospect. That's the number 3 recruit in the country saying, yeah, my opinion on Miami changed thanks to that win. You're talking about 4 stars, 5 stars, just everybody, including current commits like 2024 running back Kevin Riley, who I think personally is one of the best running backs in this class. I think we have him listed as the number 6 overall running back in this class in the On3 industry ranking. I think that he told me that this really, excited him. This got him excited about what is to come at Miami. And hopefully they think that this is going to be something that they can generate a little bit of momentum off of the rest of the season. I talked to Judd after the game, and he said, I'm hoping that this is going to help with our recruiting class. This is something that I think a lot of Miami recruits have real reason to be excited about, because while none of these guys are coming to Miami just because of the season that Miami has this year, it is still important for these recruits to see that Miami is on an upward trajectory. And to me, the biggest takeaway that I had is the Clemson win proves to recruits that Miami is in fact on an upward trajectory.
All right, now one recruit, and we've got coverage of this on the website. It was an insane weekend and day with what was 2025 commitment Armando Blunt, a 5-star from Miami Central, of all places. And so he starts out the weekend as a Miami commit. Florida State, I mean, we'll give them credit. They got him to come up for their Duke game and work them. And there were rumors all through the weekend that he was going to flip to Florida State, and all the Florida State guys were putting RPM flip predictions in, and it got the whole RPM thing spinning out over time. And but Stephen, you spoke to Armando Blunt's mom on Sunday about 6:00, and she told you no, there has been no flip, that both schools are under consideration, and that they're going to take a week and make a decision. And they were getting ready to head back over to the airport, travel back to Miami. We assumed that they would be meeting with Miami at some point to discuss the whole situation and make a decision. Well, at about 7:00, out of nowhere, Armando Blunt sends out a tweet saying, "This is home," with all caps, HOME. "I have been discussing with family, and I have decided that Florida State is where I'm meant to be. I want to thank everyone who have been part of my recruitment process. I'm locked in with my decision. God bless." Okay, so commits to Miami a couple weeks ago. Now all of a sudden flips to Florida State. I don't know why, because if he was going to flip to Florida State, why did he commit to Miami? Miami's the hometown school. He's from Miami Central, which is a hotbed for Miami players. Ruben Bane is having an incredible freshman season. Miami has about 3 or 4 guys on its staff as support personnel, strictly for the purpose of keeping stuff like this from happening in Dade County. And all hell breaks loose all of a sudden, and he decommits from Miami and commits to Florida State. Now, This is a 5-star kid by the people that do the rankings. He's reclassifying, so he's going to be young next year when he gets to college. But he's a very good player by any measure, and none of this is good. But Steven, it's just baffling to me that even with all the positive things going on, with all the things that Mario Cristobal has done to try to shore up South Florida, and make sure that Miami is doing a great job recruiting in South Florida, that Florida State was able to pull this off.
Yeah, so at about 6 o'clock, just an hour before he announced his flip, we felt pretty good about our understanding and our knowledge of where things sit, because the big takeaway that we had after speaking to his mom was not yet. There are rumors that something could happen, but not yet. And all of a sudden, Armando does decide that he is going to go ahead and flip. But to your point, Gary, addressing your point, Gary, this is I don't think that there's a way to dance around this. This is a difficult look for Mario Cristobal and Miami. Armando Blunt, a guy who's within an hour's drive of campus, a 5-star blue chip defensive lineman who was at a school that historically has almost kind of been a little bit of a feeder school to Miami, suddenly decides, yeah, I am going to go ahead and flip to Florida State. I mean, this is what Mario Cristobal, really wanted to pride himself on whenever he came to Miami to begin with. He really did want to be that coach who kept guys like Armando Blunt and Jeremiah Smith from leaving. And so, I feel like I'd almost be, misspeaking a little bit if I said that I didn't feel this isn't a bad look for Miami, because it is. This is something that you have committed a lot of resources to, in trying to keep talents like Armando Blunt and Jeremiah Smith home. And, you've got Ohio State and Florida State coming in and picking kids out of your backyard. So certainly not a great look. Do we expect Miami to continue to push and work to flip him back? Oh, yeah, I think that's a very, very safe bet. However, I still think that's something that didn't cause a ton of sleep or didn't allow the coaches to get a ton of sleep last night after his decision.
All right, so obviously Mario Cristobal has some work to do just with his recruiting team and his coaches, because his defensive line coaches aren't looking real favorable here either. I mean, quite honestly. And, they got to shore up some things. They're struggling with recruiting defensive linemen right now. They still have time. They're still 2 months away from signing day. So there is time, and they'll be in the portal and everything else. And no, this is not the end of the world that Armando Blunt is decommitting and going to Florida State. Okay. It's just not. Okay. We're going to keep it in perspective, but it is a message that they do have some housekeeping to do in-house to fix, what's going on here, because Ohio State did it with Jeremiah Smith. Now Florida State, it appears, is going to do it with Armando Blunt. We'll see. But these are obviously kids that Miami wants to get. So I think we'll leave it at that for right now, and just assume that this is not going to make Mario Cristobal happy in terms of recruiting moving forward. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you guys so much for starting out your morning with us and watching the show. If you're on YouTube right now, and you can hit your subscribe and like buttons, it'll help us with the algorithms at YouTube and growing our audience. If you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please, we invite you to become one. I think you'll have a great time. We have the best community of fans on the internet. We provide you constant coverage of the program every day, more than 3,000 stories a year on the Canes on our website, and helping you guys enhance your fan experience means everything to us. It's life to us. So, come on over and join our website as soon as you can. So for Matt Shodell and Stephen Wagner, Thank you again, everybody, for starting out with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.